It was a cold, rainy night when I first saw the gas station. My car was running low on fuel, and the next town was miles away. The old flickering sign read "Last Stop Gas," barely visible through the heavy fog. I had no choice but to pull in. The station looked abandoned. The lights inside were dim, and the place had an eerie silence. There was only one other car parked at the pump, but no one was inside it. I glanced around, expecting to see someone in the store or near the pumps, but there was no one. Just my car and the silent, empty vehicle next to me. I stepped out of my car, shivering as the cold wind blew against my skin. The air smelled strange, like something rotten mixed with gasoline. I shook off the feeling and walked toward the store. The open sign was glowing in the window, but when I tried to push the door, it wouldn't budge. It was locked. I knocked on the glass. No response. I knocked again, harder this time. Then, out of nowhere, a deep voice spoke behind me. "You shouldn't be here." I jumped and spun around. A man stood there, wearing a dirty jacket and a worn-out cap. His face was partially hidden by the shadow of the gas station's awning. "I just need gas," I said, trying to sound calm. The man didn't blink. "Leave, now," he said, his voice low and firm. I frowned. "Look, I don't have enough fuel to make it to the next town. I just need—" A loud thud interrupted me. It came from inside the gas station. I turned toward the glass window. The store looked empty, but I could feel something, someone, watching. A shadow moved near the back, just out of sight. The man grabbed my arm. His grip was ice cold. "You don't understand," he whispered. "They see you now. You have to leave." My heart started pounding. "Who?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The man's eyes darted toward the window. "It's too late," he muttered. Suddenly, the lights inside the gas station shut off. The entire area was plunged into darkness. The silence was deafening. Then, the sound of footsteps echoed from inside the store, slow, deliberate, moving toward the door. I took a step back. The man let go of my arm and whispered, "Run." I didn't hesitate. I sprinted back to my car, fumbling for my keys. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped them. Behind me, I heard the store door creak open. I turned my head just a little. I shouldn't have. A figure stood in the doorway. Tall, thin. Its limbs were too long, its fingers stretching unnaturally. Its head tilted slightly, as if studying me. Then it moved. Not like a person. Not like anything I had ever seen before. It glided across the ground, silent but impossibly fast. I threw myself into my car, slamming the door shut. My hands fumbled to start the engine. The headlights flashed on. The figure was right there, inches from the windshield. Its face, if it even had one, was just a dark void, a swirling mass of nothingness. It pressed its hands against the glass, its fingers stretching, twisting. The glass began to crack under its touch. The car roared to life. I slammed my foot on the gas pedal. The tires screeched as I sped out of the station, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would explode. In my rearview mirror, I saw the figure standing in the middle of the road, watching me. And then, just like that, it disappeared into the fog. I didn't stop driving until I reached the next town. When I finally pulled over, gasping for breath, I realized something. I never pumped any gas, but my fuel tank was full. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My chest rose and fell in uneven breaths. The rain had stopped, but the night air felt heavier, pressing against me like an unseen force. I glanced at the fuel gauge again, full. It didn't make sense. I had never pumped gas, never even touched the nozzle, and yet my tank was completely filled, as if something or someone had done it for me. My eyes flickered to the rearview mirror. The road behind me was empty. No lights, no signs of the gas station, nothing. It was as if it had never been there. I shook my head, trying to convince myself it was just exhaustion, my mind playing tricks. But deep down, I knew the truth. Something had happened back there, something I couldn't explain. I took a deep breath and looked at my phone. No service, just great. I needed to get to town. I needed to be around people, in a place that felt real. I put the car in drive and started moving again, forcing myself to focus on the road ahead. For the next 20 minutes, I drove in silence. The road was empty. No cars, no streetlights, just the darkness stretching endlessly in every direction. Then I saw the sign. It stood on the side of the road, rusted and weather-worn. The letters were faded, barely legible under my headlights. Last stop gas, 2 miles ahead. I slammed on the brakes. My breath hitched in my throat. That wasn't possible. I had just left the gas station. I had been driving away from it this whole time. And yet, the sign was telling me it was ahead of me. I stared at it, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard they ached. No, I wasn't going back. I stepped on the gas, determined to push forward to escape whatever was messing with me. But as I drove, another sign appeared. Last stop gas, 1 mile ahead. I felt a cold sweat run down my back. My fingers trembled. And then, finally, through the fog and the night, I saw it. The gas station, the same one. My breath caught in my throat. My pulse pounded in my ears. It was identical to the one I had just left. The same flickering sign. The same rusted gas pumps. The same empty car parked at the pump. And standing beneath the awning, staring right at me, the man in the dirty jacket. I slammed my foot on the brakes, my tires screeching against the pavement. My whole body was shaking now. This was wrong. So wrong. The man took a step forward. His face was pale under the dim light, his eyes dark and... "You can't leave," he said. I shook my head violently. "No, this isn't real." "You're part of it now," he whispered. "They won't let you go." I shifted the car into reverse, ready to spin around and take another road. But when I looked at the road behind me, my stomach dropped. The road was gone. Nothing but darkness stretched behind me, swallowing everything like a void. Panic clawed at my throat. I looked back at the gas station. The door was open now, and standing in the doorway was the figure. Its long, twisted fingers gripped the edges of the doorframe. Its head tilted, its featureless face locked onto me. Then it stepped forward. A deep, guttural whisper filled the air. The words made no sense, but they seeped into my skull like poison. My vision blurred. My skin burned. I couldn't move. The figure glided closer, the darkness around it pulsing like a living thing. The gas station lights flickered wildly, casting long, jagged shadows across the pavement. And then, the man spoke again. "Close your eyes." I didn't hesitate. I squeezed my eyes shut as tightly as I could. The whispers grew louder, curling into my ears like smoke. My body felt like it was floating, weightless and cold. Then, silence. When I opened my eyes, I was somewhere else. I was still in my car. The engine was running. But the gas station was gone. The road stretched ahead, empty and endless. The sky was lighter now, the faintest glow of dawn creeping over the horizon. I checked the fuel gauge. It was still full. My phone buzzed. No service changed to 4 grams. I let out a shaky breath and pressed my forehead against the steering wheel. Had it been a dream? A hallucination? I didn't know. All I knew was that I was alive. I took one last look in the rearview mirror. The road was clear. Nothing behind me. No gas station. But just as I started driving again, my phone lit up with a notification. A new message. No number. No sender, just 2 words. Turn around. I was driving late at night, tired and hungry, with only an empty road stretching ahead. The only sound was my car's engine humming softly. The fuel gauge blinked red, almost empty. I had no choice but to stop at the next gas station. After a few miles, I spotted an old, lonely gas station on the side of the road. The neon sign flickered, barely staying lit. It just said gas in red letters. The place looked abandoned, but the lights inside were on. I pulled up to one of the pumps and turned off the engine. The night was silent, too silent. No cars, no people. Just the cool wind rustling through the trees behind the station. I stepped out, the gravel crunching under my boots. As I reached for the pump, I noticed something strange. There was no price listed, no brand, just an old rusted machine with a cracked screen. I walked toward the station to see if someone was inside. The glass door was smudged with dirt, making it hard to see in. But then I noticed something. Movement. A shadow passed quickly behind the counter. I put the door open. A little bell jingled above my head. Inside, the air was thick and musty. The shelves were half empty, filled with dusty chips, old soda bottles, and candy bars with faded wrappers. Behind the counter stood an old man. His face was long and pale, with sunken eyes that didn't blink. He wore a dirty uniform, and his hands were covered in grease. "Pump 4, I said, pulling out my wallet. The old man just stared at me. His lips moved, but no sound came out. I need gas," I repeated. Slowly, he lifted a shaky hand and pointed behind me. I turned, expecting to see something, maybe another customer, but there was nothing. Just rows of shelves and a flickering light in the back. When I looked back at him, he had moved closer. "Don't look in the mirror," he whispered. Didn't answer. His eyes flicked to the corner of the store where a large dusty mirror stood. It was cracked in one corner. I looked at my reflection, and then I saw it. My reflection was smiling, but I wasn't. My real face was frozen in fear, but the reflection grinned, baring its teeth. I stumbled back, my breath quick and shallow. The old man grabbed my arm. His grip was ice cold. "You should go," he whispered. "Now." I yanked my arm away and ran out of the store. My hands fumbled to unlock my car door. I jumped inside and locked the doors, breathing hard. In the rearview mirror, I saw something standing by the gas station door. It was me, but I was still inside the car. The other me just stood there, watching. Then slowly, it lifted its hand and waved. The lights in the gas station flickered. The old man was gone. I slammed my foot on the gas and sped away, my heart pounding. As I drove, I looked in the mirror again. The reflection was still smiling. "See you soon." I had been driving for hours. The road stretched endlessly, dark and empty, with only my headlights cutting through the black night. I should have stopped earlier, found a motel, but I had convinced myself I could make it a little farther. Now, my fuel gauge blinked red, almost empty. I cursed under my breath and checked my phone. No signal, no GPS. I was in the middle of nowhere. Then, as if by luck, I saw it. A gas station up ahead. The neon sign flickered weakly. It only said gas in glowing red letters, some of them broken. The place looked abandoned, but the lights were on. I pulled up to the pumps, turned off the engine, and stepped out. The air was unnaturally still. No crickets, no wind, just silence. The gas pump was old, rusted, with no digital screen, just a mechanical counter. I picked up the nozzle and pressed it against the fuel tank. Nothing. The pump was dead. I sighed and glanced toward the station door. I could see dim yellow light inside. A figure moved behind the counter. Good, someone was here. I walked toward the entrance and pushed the door open. A little bell jingled above my head, breaking the silence. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the smell of something old and rotten. The shelves were nearly empty, only a few bags of stale chips, some melted candy bars, and faded soda cans. Behind the counter stood an old man. His face was gaunt and pale, his eyes sunken. He wore a dirty uniform stained with something dark. His hands, long and bony, rested on the counter. I hesitated. Something about him was off. "Hey," I said, forcing a smile. "Pump 4, I need gas." The old man didn't respond. His lips moved, but no sound came out. I frowned. Pump 4? Slowly, he lifted one trembling hand and pointed behind me. I turned instinctively, expecting another customer, but there was no one. Just the empty aisles, the flickering fluorescent light, and a large dusty mirror on the wall. My stomach clenched. When I turned back to the counter, the old man had moved closer. "Don't look in the mirror," he whispered. His voice was dry, cracked, like dead leaves scraping against pavement. I swallowed hard. "What?" The old man didn't answer. His sunken eyes darted toward the mirror again. I followed his gaze. The glass was cloudy with dust, cracked in one corner. My reflection stood there, same tired face, same jacket, same everything. But something was wrong. I wasn't moving. My reflection just stood there, staring back at me. And then it smiled. A slow, unnatural grin stretched across its face, even though my real face wasn't smiling. I stumbled back, my breath catching in my throat. My reflection's head tilted slightly, eyes locked onto mine. "Sir?" I turned back to the old man, panic rising in my voice. "What the hell is this?" But the counter was empty. The old man was gone. The store was silent, except for the flickering light and my own ragged breathing. I backed toward the door, keeping my eyes on the mirror. My reflection was still smiling. And then, it took a step forward. The real me hadn't moved, but the reflection had. I bolted out of the store, my heart slamming in my chest. My hands fumbled for my car keys. I threw open the door, jumped in, and locked it. I breathed hard, gripping the steering wheel. My headlights cast a dim glow on the gas station's glass door. Then, something moved. A figure stepped out from the store. It was me. I was still in my car, but another version of me stood by the gas station, staring. The other me lifted its hand and waved. "Nope. No, no, no." My voice shook as I turned the key in the ignition. The engine roared to life. I slammed my foot on the gas and peeled out of the parking lot, tires screeching against the asphalt. As I sped down the road, I checked my rearview mirror. The gas station faded into the distance. The other me stood in the parking lot watching. And then, it whispered, "See you soon." The road that never ends, I kept driving, gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. My heart pounded in my ears. I didn't look in the mirror again. I refused. I drove for miles, expecting to see signs of life. A town, another gas station, anything. But there was nothing. Just the endless, dark road. Then, up ahead, I saw something. A gas station. My stomach dropped. It looked exactly the same. Same flickering neon sign, same rusted pumps, same cracked windows. I hit the brakes hard, my tires skidding on the pavement. "No," I whispered. "That's not possible." I had driven straight for at least an hour. There was no way I had circled back. I turned my head slowly, my hands shaking. And then I saw it. In the mirror, a figure sat in my back seat. It was me, grinning. A cold wave of terror washed over me. My breath hitched. My hands clenched the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. I didn't want to look, but I had to. Slowly, I turned my head toward the back seat. It was empty, but in the mirror, I was still there, grinning. The reflection of me in the back seat tilted its head slightly, eyes gleaming with something unnatural. Its grin stretched wider, impossibly wide, almost inhuman. I gasped and slammed my foot on the gas. The car roared forward, my heart hammering. I didn't know where I was going. I just had to get away. The trees on the roadside blurred as I sped through the darkness. My headlights barely cut through the fog that had suddenly thickened around me. The road seemed endless. No towns, no exits, no signs, and then, up ahead, another gas station. The same gas station. I skidded to a stop, tires screeching. My chest tightened with panic. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. I slammed my hands on the dashboard, breathing hard. "This isn't happening," I muttered. "I'm dreaming. I'm just tired." I squeezed my eyes shut. I counted to 5. When I opened them, I wasn't in my car anymore. I was inside the gas station, standing at the counter. The dusty shelves, the flickering lights, the rotting smell. I was back. But the worst part? The old man was gone. And now, I was behind the counter. I tried to move, but I couldn't. My body wasn't mine anymore. My hands felt stiff, heavy, like they weren't real. And then, the bell above the door jingled. A man walked in. He looked tired, confused, just like I had been. He stepped toward the counter, pulling out his wallet. "Pump 4, he said. I opened my mouth to warn him. to scream, to run. But all that came out was a whisper, "Don't look in the mirror." And behind him, in the cracked mirror on the wall, his reflection smiled. I never liked stopping at gas stations late at night. Something about the flickering lights, the empty parking lot, and the quiet hum of the gas pumps always made my skin crawl. But that night, I had no choice. It was past midnight, and I was driving home from my friend's house. The road stretched endlessly before me, dark and lonely. My gas gauge was blinking, warning me that I was running on empty. I sighed and checked my GPS. The nearest gas station was about 10 minutes away, just off a small highway exit. I pulled in, relieved to see the lights still on. But as soon as I stopped the car, I felt something was off. The gas station was deserted. No other cars, no people, not even a clerk at the register inside. I hesitated for a moment, but decided to fill up quickly and leave. I stepped out, the cool night air sending a shiver down my spine. As I reached for the pump, I noticed movement from the corner of my eye. A man stood at the farthest pump, dressed in dark clothes. He wasn't fueling a car, just standing there staring at me. My heart skipped a beat. I tried to ignore him and started pumping gas. The numbers on the meter ticked up, but I kept glancing at the man. He hadn't moved. He just kept staring. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe he was waiting for someone. Maybe he was homeless, looking for help. Still, I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling in my gut. Then I heard it. A strange clicking sound, like nails tapping on glass. I turned my head, expecting to see the man had moved closer, but he was still in the same spot. The noise was coming from the gas station store. I looked at the windows. They were dark and empty. But then, something moved behind the glass. A shadow. Someone, or something, was inside. I froze, gripping the pump handle tightly. My mind raced. Maybe it was the clerk? Hiding? Maybe I should go check? The man at the pump suddenly moved, not walking, just shifting. One moment he was at his pump, and the next, he was 2 pumps closer. I hadn't seen him take a step. I felt my breath catch in my throat. My hands started shaking. The clicking sound grew louder, like something was knocking against the glass harder. I made up my mind. I wasn't going inside. I just needed to finish pumping and leave. Then the man spoke. "Need help?" His voice was flat, emotionless. I looked up. He was even closer now, just 1 pump away. My fingers tightened around the handle. "I'm good," I said quickly. He tilted his head. In the dim light, I finally saw his eyes. They were completely black. No whites, no pupils. Just deep, empty darkness. A chill ran down my spine. I dropped the pump, gas still spilling onto the pavement, and lunged for my car door. My hands fumbled with the handle. The man took a step forward. Then the lights in the store flickered. I turned my head for just a second and saw something staring at me from the window. A face, twisted and pale, mouth stretched too wide, eyes hollow. Its hands pressed against the glass, fingers too long, nails tapping. My heart pounded. I yanked the door open, jumped inside, and locked it. Now, he smiled. His lips peeled back, revealing sharp, jagged teeth. I slammed my foot on the gas. The tires screeched as I sped out of the station, my heart hammering in my chest. I didn't stop driving. I didn't look back. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely keep hold of the wheel. After a few miles, I finally dared to glance in my rearview mirror. Headlights. A car was following me. No, not a car. Just 2 lights, floating. No vehicle. Just 2 glowing orbs in the darkness. I pressed the gas harder, my car speeding down the empty road. The lights kept pace with me, never getting closer, never falling behind. And then, they disappeared, just like that. I didn't stop until I reached home. I checked the news. There was nothing about the gas station, no reports of strange people, no missing clerk. It was like nothing had happened. But when I went outside to my car, I saw something that made my stomach drop. On my windshield, written in smeared black letters, "See you again." I never took that highway again, and I never stopped for gas at night anymore. Days passed, but the fear stayed with me. Every time I got in my car, I felt like someone was watching. I kept checking my mirrors, half expecting to see those floating headlights again. At night, I dreamed of that gas station, the man with black eyes, the clicking sound, the twisted face in the window, and every morning I checked my windshield. At first, there was nothing. But a week later, I woke up to find new words written on the glass. "Come back." It was written in the same smeared black letters. My stomach twisted. I hadn't told anyone what happened that night. So who left this? I rushed to my security cameras, my hands trembling as I pulled up the footage from the night before. The screen showed my empty driveway. Nothing unusual. Hours passed in fast forward. Then, just after 3 a.m., the camera flickered. For a split second, the screen went black. When it came back on, the words were on my windshield, but no one was there. From that day on, things got worse. Objects in my house moved on their own. I'd leave my phone on the table, only to find it in another room minutes later. My bedroom door, which I always left closed, would be wide open when I woke up, and the clicking sound followed me. It came from my windows at night, a soft rhythmic tapping like nails on glass. Every time I got up to check, there was nothing there. One night, I put my phone on record and placed it by the window. The next morning, I played it back. At first, there was silence. Then, at exactly 3 a.m., the tapping started. Slow, steady, growing louder, then a voice, a whisper, barely audible. "Come back." I turned off the recording and threw my phone across the room. My heart pounded in my chest. I didn't sleep that night. I knew I had to do something. I didn't want to go back to that gas station, but the nightmares, the messages, the tapping, I felt like I had no choice. Maybe if I returned, I'd find an answer. Or maybe it would all stop. So, a week after that night, I got in my car and drove. The highway was just as empty as before. The farther I drove, the heavier the air felt, like the road itself was trying to warn me. When I reached the gas station, I felt my stomach drop. It was different. The building was burned down. Charred walls, shattered windows. The gas pumps were rusted, covered in vines. It looked abandoned for years, but I knew that wasn't possible. I was here just a week ago. I stepped out of my car, my breath shaky. The air smelled of old ash and decay. Then the clicking started again. Not from the windows this time. From behind me. I turned slowly. There he was. The man with the black eyes, standing by the rusted gas pumps, smiling. I stumbled backward, my body screaming at me to run, but my legs refused to move. The man took a step forward, his smile growing wider, then more clicking. From the burned-down store, I turned my head, my heart racing. Something crawled out of the broken window. Pale, stretched skin, hollow eyes, 2 long fingers, the thing from my nightmare. I couldn't breathe. Then they both spoke at the same time. "We told you to come back." I ran. I don't even remember unlocking my car door. My hands fumbled as I turned the key, my entire body shaking. As I slammed the gas pedal, I saw them in the rearview mirror. The man, the creature, standing side by side, watching me leave. As I sped down the highway, I checked the mirror again. The floating headlights were back. I don't remember much after that. I just kept driving, pushing my car to its limits, not stopping until I was miles away. When I finally got home, I parked in my driveway and sat there, gripping the steering wheel, trying to steady my breathing. I checked my windshield. No messages this time. But as I looked at my reflection in the glass, I noticed something behind me. A shadow, a face, watching. I spun around, but my back seat was empty. I ran inside and locked every door. That night, the tapping on my window was louder than ever. I didn't check. I didn't record. I just buried my head under the covers and prayed for morning. I moved away a month later. New house, new city. I even got a new car just in case. For a while things were normal. No strange messages, no clicking sounds. I started to believe it was over, but last night I got a text from an unknown number. Just 3 words. See you soon. And outside my window, I heard it. Tap, tap, tap. It never really ended.